I'm Abby Tomlinson, and as Rick said, the reason I'm standing here in front of you today is actually because of social media. Now, during the general election, I just started a hashtag, #CumMillerFan, completely innocently, not expecting anything to come of it. And a BuzzFeed journalist messaged me and asked to write an article, so I thought, fair enough, if you want to write an article about me liking Get a Bill Ban, that's fine. And they did, and it sort of went viral, and the next morning I had phone calls from BBC News, ITV News, everything, and that sort of just catapulted me into a world of opportunities that I would never have had, like writing for The Guardian, writing for the Huffington Post, getting to speak to some politicians and interviewing them, and it's all these opportunities, all these doors that have opened for me have opened because of social media. So I apologise if this speech seems very Twitter-centric, but it is largely what my own experiences and opinions have formed around. It has, in no uncertain terms, changed my life in the last 6 months, really. And I suppose, in a way, the person standing in front of you today is a product of social media. And because I have become sort of more popular on social media, I think the more you experience the good side of social media, the more you also experience the bad. And so I think that's why I've been asked to try and answer this question today. But I don't think it has a simple yes or no answer. And, as with a lot of things, social media has both its downsides and its benefits. But I think, for me, ultimately my argument would be that social media is more creating a selfless generation than a selfish generation, and that its benefits far outweigh its flaws. Now, I think it's better we get the downside out of the way first. I would be wrong to say that social media is purely a force for good, however much I wish I could. People say things on social media that they wouldn't say in real life, because it's easier to hide behind a computer when no one else can see you and send hate to someone online than it is to say it to them in real life. You all know who I mean. Trolls. The dark figures hiding in the metaphorical caves of social media, usually because they are inherent cowards, with fake pictures and fake names, lurking, waiting, ready to pounce on anyone who expresses an opinion that differs to theirs, or even someone who's different to them in the way they look. The worst thing about social media is that as much as it gives platforms to good people and people who deserve it, it also gives a platform to people who can misuse it, to abuse, to put down, and to harass. And those who do so do it for their own ego, because it makes them feel important, like they have power over the person they abuse, and are untouchable and immune to any repercussions. Now, I just thought I'd read out some of the examples that I have got from social media, sort of give you some examples. So my favourite one is this one. It's quite long, so that's why I've got it on my phone. And it is, I wrote an article for The Independent about David Cameron's policies, and this is what I wrote on the bottom of it. The most disgusting thing about this unsubstantiated load of tripe is the way that malicious trolls like Abby Tomlinson, brackets, whoever she is, don't give a toss about whether there's any actual evidence to back it up, and this is my favourite part. If nothing else, spare a thought for David Cameron's children having to read her poisonous garbage. So I don't know who's forcing David Cameron's children to read my articles, but there you go. Another one is, Louise Mensch was right about you. That's a statement in itself, because Louise Mensch was right. Well, how often does that happen? Your glasses don't fit properly and are pretty awful. Well, I don't know who made them an optician, but there you go. I mean, I couldn't find any of the worst ones, because I often just block people as soon as it comes in. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you get more followers on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you also get a lot of people that sort of hone in on that attention that you get and want to use it for their own gain to sort of put you down. And it does, I wouldn't say it encourages this sort of selfish sort of abuse, but it does enable it to have a platform. And with more, like I said, with more popularity in social media comes more exposure to those who want to put you down. So I understand that there are two sides to this argument. However, ultimately, these online abusers, these bad people who do these things, are not created through social media. I mean, if you send all those hateful messages online, how likely are you to be the world's most caring person in the first place? Well, not very likely. So while it does give some particularly nasty characters a platform, and I accept and have experienced this downside, I do not believe it is responsible for their creation, as selfish, mean people are created out of their own cowardice and character failings. So though we must accept that social media is not all good, I do believe it has many positives. Now, I'm just going to talk a bit about sort of how social media is portrayed in art and how adults like to talk about it. I think a lot of adults like to patronise young people over their use of social media. So how many of us here have had, get off your phone, go outside? We didn't have these in my days, we managed to survive without them. You wouldn't last in the 1980s or whatever. And I think they're trying to make us feel guilty for technological advancement, which I'm not that sure about. And I think artists create pieces like, they paint a prison inside a mobile phone to sort of show that it's a form of entrapment. And the irony is, you're probably looking at this piece of art on your phone. So, and obviously I respect an artist's right to create whatever they wish. However, it's just not something I agree with. I mean, I don't see phones and social media as a prison. I see it as sort of an open plane. Yes, our world may look cold and unsociable from the outside, as was highlighted by a project that took the phones out of ordinary pictures, supposedly to highlight the loneliness of our generation. But did anyone think about what those people were doing on their phones? What they were actually feeling inside? Perhaps they may not be laughing at a joke with a group of friends at a table. But what could have they been doing? Who were they reading about? What were they reading about? Where were they looking at? Who were they connected with because of social media? I think a poignant quote in this example is by the brilliant Alan Bennett in his play The History Boys. And he said, "The best moments in reading are when you come across something, a thought, a feeling, a way of looking at things, which you have thought special and particular to you. Now here it is, set down by someone else, a person you've never met, someone even who is long dead. And it is as if a hand has come out and taken yours." Granted, Alan Bennett was talking about books and not social media. But the principle, the sentiment, I believe to be the same. Books for centuries have given us access to other people and characters, evoked our feelings of compassion, of empathy, evoked our human emotions towards people we don't really know, sometimes, often, fictional people. Social media has given us access to millions more people, millions more real-life stories, who may be similar or completely different to our own. Millions more people who we can hear about, whose feelings we can relate to, whose situation we can empathize with. What is more human, more compassionate, less selfish than being made to feel something by the words or experiences of another human who may be thousands of miles away? Social media is brilliant because it can offer a different community, for many a better community. People who live in particularly isolated areas where everyone holds the same opinion and it's hard to be different, it can be lonely. But to be able to escape that loneliness, to be able to escape that community where you may feel like you're the odd one out, simply by turning your phone and going on social media, is a wonderful thing. It's amazing that social media can offer an open and welcoming community to people who aren't perhaps welcomed in their own community. It can be an escape, an opportunity to express your thoughts and feelings and be yourself in such an open way that you might not be able to do with the people that surround you in your daily life. It means you can talk to people going through what you are going through, feeling what you are feeling, and it makes you feel like you aren't alone anymore. It's an amazing feeling because you can look back to when you were called a weirdo in the school playground because you were different, maybe because you dressed differently, looked differently, thought differently, or even spoke differently, and you spent all that time believing them, thinking there was something wrong with you. And all of a sudden, through social media, you suddenly connected to tens, hundreds, even thousands of other weirdos who understand you in a way that those in your real life have never and may not do. And you don't feel so alone. Now, my own example of this is that I like to talk politics. It's all I want to talk about, really. And so I go into my friends, and the autumn statement a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, so what do you think about the autumn statement?" And they're just like, "Oh, it's all right," and I can't. I'm just like, I really want to talk to someone about the autumn statement, but no one in my real life is interested. So I go online, and I'm like, "So what do you think about the autumn statement?" And I can have hour-long conversations with people about the autumn statement, and it's so exciting because I just love things like that. And there's no one like that in my real life. There's no one in my real life who I feel like I can have those conversations with. And I've made friends online through social media that I can talk to. I have a lot of political friends that I've made through social media, and it's so good to be able to find someone who's interested in the same things as you. You can talk for hours about your passion for something, and they share that passion. It feels like such an amazing connection, and you get it through social media. So I don't believe it's creating a selfish generation. I think it's creating a generation that is more accepting to those different to them, because the community is not as isolated. There are communities where everyone is pretty much the same, you do the same thing, but on social media, that just isn't the case. Your eyes are open to situations that you never knew existed. People experience things you never knew could be experienced. We're suddenly involved in this community where everyone is different, but at the same time, everyone is also fundamentally the same and has something in common with another person. Well, you know, what is the opposite of a selfish generation? It's a selfless generation, because when I think of the opposite of selfish, I think about compassion, I think about being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, having empathy for them, being aware of situations those different to you, and thinking about them and not only your own. And as social media connects us to more people in their lives, it arguably means we feel more compassion towards those we would have otherwise been unaware of. And therefore, social media cannot be creating a selfish generation, because we are more connecting to each other, more understanding of each other, and most importantly, more aware of each other's struggles, each other's victories, and each other's lives.